She and her dog Timmy took up housekeeping in a cozy little house in the country. It was in a remote area, surrounded by miles of wooded forest and close to a river. It was on that very first summer that things came up missing. The first thing she noticed was the missing blanket, stolen right off the clothesline. The next week, it was 2 blankets. She stopped leaving them out at night after that. They never took her clothes. It was just the blankets they were after.
Graham had a huge vegetable garden. It was her pride and joy. Sweet corn, tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, pumpkins, squash, green beans. She had a picnic table and a chair in the middle where she could rest and admire her work. Shortly after the blankets came up missing, she began to see vegetables missing from the garden. She had had problems before with the occasional deer or rabbit, but this was different. The vegetables, such as the tomatoes, appeared to be neatly plucked from their vines, and whole pumpkins came up missing. If a deer or rabbit were to eat from a pumpkin, they would nibble a hole in it. Whoever this was picked up and took the whole pumpkin.
One day while working in the garden, she noticed tracks in the soft dirt around the potato patch. As she took a closer look, she saw that the tracks were not from a deer, nor did they have claw prints like a bear would leave. The tracks had toes. These were footprints, huge footprints. She said to herself, well, if this was one of the locals, they sure have some big feet. She estimated the prints to be about 16 inches long. That evening, when darkness fell, she pulled her favorite chair up to the window. Timmy was on the floor next to her. She got out her knitting, made a pot of tea, and she waited.
Around midnight, she heard a howl, a loud howl like nothing she had ever heard before. Timmy shook and whined. It was not a coyote, she knew that, and it wasn't a cougar. And then the howling was followed by several hoots. Whoop, whoop! She didn't see anything that night. She just heard the sounds of something very strange. The next night, she was too tired to stay up. She slept with one ear alert, but never heard a thing. The third night, she stayed up again and was not disappointed. She decided to leave a giant pumpkin, 2 tomatoes, and a basket of string beans outside on the picnic table, and she watched out the window.
Around midnight, Timmy's head jerked up and his ears stood alert. He began to tremble and ran straight for under the bed. Then she heard something. She peeked through the curtains, and there, standing in the cornfield, was a huge creature, a dark brown hairy beast at least 8 foot tall. He was looking at the ears of corn. She thought, maybe this was a gorilla that escaped from the zoo, but she knew this was no gorilla. And then he disappeared. Where'd he go? It was hard to see in the dark. Scanned the backyard. Then she spotted him by the tomatoes. He was looking at them intently. Then he took one. He walked over to the picnic table and looked at the vegetables. He took the pumpkin off the table. Then he disappeared. Where did he go? Then she spotted him again as he disappeared into the woods.
Later on, Linda said to her grandmother, "Oh, you must have been terrified." Her answer was, "I just thought, why did he pluck a tomato off the vine when there was 2 perfectly good ones on the table? And all he took was the pumpkin." shucking. Her grandmother wasn't one to be afraid of much of anything. She remembered as a young child living in California, a man had tried to break into their house through a narrow window in the bathroom. Well, her Gram was so mad she grabbed a butcher knife on the way outside. The man was halfway through the window. She pulled him back out by the ankles and chased him all the way down the alley. They never saw him again.
Well, she never waited up for the creature again. From that day forward, she would leave something on the picnic table for him. She said, "He is some unfortunate creature who is just hungry, that's all. And I share and share alike." She said he only came in the summer and the fall months, and he came year after year. She found that he preferred the squash and pumpkins, so that very next summer she began to make cakes out of his favorite vegetables to leave on the table for him. About once a week she would bake him one in a bundt cake pan. She said he was such a big guy and his hands were so huge, he could pick up the cake and hold it in the center and eat it like a donut. He must have loved those cakes, because soon after he began to leave her little tokens of appreciation on the picnic table. There would be an apple, a pine cone, a flower, or a pretty rock. She kept those gifts on the windowsill in her kitchen.
Every summer she would also leave a blanket on the clothesline, but it was never taken. Nor was the garden ever raided again. Only the cake and fruit and vegetables left on the table were taken after that. She didn't have a real name for her creature. She would sometimes call him the Beast. After a while, she began to call him King Kong, and that name stuck. It wasn't until the early 1970s that she found another name for her creature. There was a series of sightings, and it was all over the news. Bigfoot, he was called, also known as Sasquatch by the Native Americans. She couldn't pronounce Sasquatch, so she continued to call him King Kong and only occasionally Bigfoot. Linda's wonderfully sharing Gram passed away in November 1989. Before she passed, she gave Linda her Sasquatch Cake recipe, the very same one she made for him and them, as she came to believe he was not always alone and may have had a family.
Gram's Sasquatch Cake. 3 eggs, 1 cup oil, 2 cups squash or pumpkins, 1 teaspoon pumpkin spice, 2 cups sugar, 3 cups flour, 1 teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon baking soda, 3 teaspoons baking powder, oops, got that reversed, sorry, 3 teaspoons vanilla, 1 cup nuts or raisins. Mix well, lightly grease and flour a large bundt cake pan. Bake at 325 till well done, 30 to 45 minutes. Serve with coffee, milk, or tea. Enjoy with family and Sasquatch friends.